This question shouldn't bother you so much, but it does, because somewhere deep in your conscience, you already know the answer. And knowing hurts more than ignorance ever did. Most people spend their entire lives running away from this question. Not because it's difficult to answer, but because the answer is too obvious, too raw, too real. There is a brutal difference between being alive and truly living. Between inhabiting a body that breathes and inhabiting a life that pulses. And you feel that difference every day. In that second when the alarm clock rings, and you need 3 deep breaths just to find the will to get up. In that strange feeling of watching your own life through the window, as if you were a spectator of a story that should be yours but no longer seems to be. It's not depression. It's not laziness. It's not fussiness. It's something more disturbing. It's the feeling that you are disappearing within your own existence, performing gestures, repeating routines, following protocols, but at no point being genuinely you. And the worst part, you don't know exactly when it started. It was gradual, imperceptible. One day you had dreams, desires, a version of yourself that seemed possible. The next day, or maybe years later, you woke up and realized that person never arrived. In their place is someone functional, obedient, tired, but fundamentally absent. This absence has a name. Philosophers call it inauthenticity. Not in the moral sense of being false to others, but in the existential sense of being false to yourself, of living a life you didn't choose, of inhabiting an identity that was assembled by external expectations, internal fears, and circumstantial conveniences. You've become a collage of compromises you never wanted to make, but made anyway. And now looking in the mirror, you don't completely recognize who is looking back at you. But here's the part no one told you. This feeling is not a defect. It's an alarm. Your psyche isn't broken for feeling this way. It's working perfectly. Because the only thing scarier than realizing you're living on autopilot would be not realizing it. It would be reaching the end and discovering that you spent entire decades anesthetized without ever truly waking up. So the question isn't whether you're feeling it. The question is, what are you going to do now that you know? There's a ghost that lives inside your routine. You don't see it, but you feel it. It's there when you open your eyes in the morning, and before you even think, you already know exactly how your day is going to be. Not because anything extraordinary is planned, but because nothing is. The sequence is already programmed. Wake up, make coffee on autopilot. Shower while thinking about something else. Put on the clothes that are closest at hand. Rush out because you're always late, even though you woke up at the same time as always. And then you get stuck in traffic, or on the subway, or in line for the bus, and you look around. Everyone has the same expression. It's not sadness. It's not anger. It's something more empty. It's absence. People who are technically awake but deeply asleep, functioning but not living. And you realize with an uncomfortable shiver that you are one of them. That your face probably bears the same mark. The mark of someone who is serving a sentence that no one has officially decreed, but everyone seems to accept as inevitable. The philosopher Heidegger called this being there. The mode of existence in which you merely occupy space and time, without really inhabiting your life with presence. It's when you're at work, but thinking about being at home. You're at home, but looking at your phone. You're on your phone, but not really seeing anything. A perpetual state of semi-attention where you're never completely anywhere. And the scariest thing is that it becomes so normal that you forget there's another way to live. Have you ever had that moment, usually late at night or in the middle of a Sunday with no commitments, when for a second the fog lifts and you see yourself from the outside as if you can finally see the whole machine working? You realize that you're executing a life, checking boxes, fulfilling expectations, occupying the role that has been assigned to you. But nowhere in this script is there room for you, for what you really want, feel, dream, need. And then comes the thought that freezes you. How long have I been doing this? 3 years? 5? 10? The answer scares you because when you try to remember, the years blend together. The weeks are indistinguishable. The months are variations on the same theme. You worked, paid bills, fulfilled obligations, were responsible. But you can't identify a single moment when you felt you were living intensely. As if your life were a movie playing in the background while you wait for the real movie to start. Except it never starts. There's a word for this that existential philosophy uses. Inauthenticity. Not in the sense of being a liar or a hypocrite, but in the sense of living a life that is not truly yours. A life where you're a character, not the author. Where you play a role so well that you forgot you were playing it. And the role? It was written by an invisible committee of voices. Your parents, society, culture, the market, fear, insecurity, everyone but you. Did you choose this career because you really wanted to, or because it seemed safe? Are you in this relationship because you truly love, or because you've already invested too much time to leave? Do you live where you live because it's where you want to be, or because it's where you manage to be? And your hobbies, your friendships, your weekends, Are they genuine choices or just what's left after obligation has consumed everything? The harsh truth is that most people aren't living. They're being lived. Life happens to them, not through them. They react, adapt, survive, but they don't create, they don't choose, they don't really decide. And the worst part is that it's not dramatic. It's not a Greek tragedy. It's silent. It's accepted. It's normal. You wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep. And in between there is work, bills, obligations, distractions. Until one day you are 40 or 50 or 60 and you realize that you have spent your whole life waiting for the right conditions, waiting to have more money, waiting to have more time, waiting to feel ready, waiting for life to finally begin. But life was already happening, only you weren't in it. And here's the most painful part. You always knew, not consciously perhaps, but somewhere deep down, beneath all the rationalizations and excuses, you always felt it. That low, constant discomfort, that feeling that something is wrong, that little voice that asks, usually at 3 a.m., is this it? You tried to silence it. You tried to distract it with TV shows, social media, shopping, alcohol, anything that would numb you long enough. And it worked. For a while. But it always comes back. Because it's not an external voice. It's the deepest part of you trying to wake you up. But why do you accept it? Why do so many people accept it? If it's so obvious that something is wrong, why doesn't anyone change? The answer is simpler and crueler than you might think. Because we've been trained to do so. Since childhood, you have been taught to value security over meaning, to seek comfort over truth, to choose the known over the possible. The entire educational, social, and family systems have been designed to produce functional, obedient, predictable people. People who pay their bills, follow the rules, and don't make too much noise. And it works. Perfectly. You learned without anyone having to say it explicitly that dreaming is for children, that having intense passions is immature, that wanting more than a safe life is ungrateful, that taking risks is irresponsible, that changing direction is failing, that being realistic is giving up on who you could be and accepting who you have managed to become within the circumstances. And so, you were domesticated, not violently but invisibly. Every time you had a dream and heard that doesn't make money, you internalized that dreams are luxuries. Every time you wanted to do something different and heard what if it doesn't work out, you internalized that risk is the enemy. Every time you got excited about something and someone said be realistic, you internalized that enthusiasm is naivety. And then you grew up and you discovered that the world rewards exactly the behavior you were taught. You get a job if you are reliable, not creative. You get approval if you are predictable, not authentic. You get security if you stand still, don't move. And security seems so important when you are tired, afraid, overwhelmed. Security seems rational. It seems mature. It seems wise. But here's what no one told you. Security is an illusion. You give up your life for security. You accept the job you don't want, the relationship that doesn't fulfill you, the city where you don't feel at home, all in the name of security. But security never comes. You always need more. More money in your account. More job stability. More guarantees that things won't go wrong. And while you chase this ghost, the years go by. And your life goes by with them. The philosopher Sartre had a term for this. Bad faith. It's when you pretend to yourself that you have no choice. When you convince yourself that you're stuck, that there's no alternative. That's just the way things are. It's the most elaborate lie you tell. Not to others, but to yourself. Because if you really have no choice, then you don't have to take responsibility. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to act. But the truth that hurts and liberates at the same time is that you always had a choice. You chose this job. You chose this relationship. You chose this life. Not choosing is also a choice. Leaving things as they are is also a decision. And you are making that decision every day. Bad faith is comfortable. It takes away your responsibility. If you can't change, then you don't have to try. If you're stuck, then you can complain, play the victim, blame the system, the economy, luck, others. And there is a strange peace in that. An unhealthy peace, but peace nonetheless. Because assuming that you can change means assuming that if you haven't changed so far, it's because you chose not to change. And that's terrifying. Because it means that all these years have been your responsibility. That you are not a victim of circumstances. You are an accomplice to them. But choosing differently comes at a price. You will disappoint people. Your parents who invested in your education will question you. Your friends who are trapped in the same cages will feel judged. Your partner who has built a life relying on your predictability will resist. And you will feel guilty. You will feel afraid. You will feel that you are being selfish, irresponsible, immature. And maybe you are all of those things. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is to reach the age of 70 and realize that you lived the life other people wanted you to live. That you followed the script met expectations, were a good and responsible person, but you were never yourself. You never discovered who you really were. You never tested your limits. You never tried. There are nurses who work with terminally ill patients. They report that the greatest regret of those who are dying is not that they worked too much or traveled too little. It is, I wish I had had the courage to live the life I wanted, not the life that was expected of me. Read that again. So the question is no longer, what will I lose if I change? The question is, what have I already lost by not changing? And the answer to that question is growing. Every day, every week, every year that passes and you remain exactly where you are. But there's something even stranger going on. Something you may not have consciously noticed, but your body has known for a long time. That anxiety that comes out of nowhere on Sunday night. That tightness in your chest when you think about Monday. That tiredness that no amount of sleep seems to cure. That constant irritation, that impatience with little things. That emptiness you try to fill with food, shopping, Netflix, anything. You think these are problems, symptoms, things that need to be fixed, medicated, eliminated. And maybe you've already tried. Maybe you've gone to the doctor, taken medication, gone to therapy, changed your diet, started meditating, and maybe it helped a little. But the discomfort always comes back, as if it were coming from a place that no medicine can reach. And it is, because it's not a problem, it's a sign. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst, spent decades studying why seemingly successful people with comfortable, secure lives fell into deep crises. And he came to a disturbing conclusion. In most cases, psychological suffering does not come from a chemical imbalance or a specific trauma. It comes from living wrong, from betraying who you really are, from denying essential parts of yourself in the name of a life that seems more acceptable, safer, more normal. Jung called this neurosis, but not in the medical sense we use today. For him, neurosis was the soul screaming. It was your deepest self rebelling against the prison you yourself had built. And the symptoms, anxiety, depression, emptiness, were not the problem. They were the alarm. Your psyche's last desperate attempt to wake you up before it's too late. Think about it. That anxiety you feel on Sunday night, it's not irrational. It's the most rational response possible to the fact that you're going to spend the next 5 days doing something that doesn't nourish you, doesn't challenge you, doesn't fulfill you. Your body knows it. Your soul knows it. And it's trying to tell you, don't do it, not again, please. But you ignore it. You take a sleeping pill. You distract yourself. You convince yourself that it's just tiredness, just stress, just a phase. And on Monday you get up and go anyway. And your body registers, he's not listening to me. I need to shout louder. And so the anxiety increases. The emptiness deepens. The fatigue becomes chronic. Because it's not about serotonin. It's about meaning. It's about living a life that contradicts everything you are. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, saw this even more clearly. He realized that in the camps, the people who survived were not necessarily the physically strongest. They were the ones who had a why, a reason to live, something greater than their immediate suffering. And when the war ended and he returned to his clinic, he realized that most of his patients were suffering from the same thing that killed people in the camps, a lack of meaning. He called it existential emptiness, and his conclusion was radical. If you don't have a purpose, a reason to wake up in the morning that is greater than your comfort, your mind will become ill, not because you are weak, but because you are human. Because humans need meaning as much as they need air. And when you live a meaningless life, even if it is a safe, comfortable, socially approved life, you suffocate. Slowly, silently, but suffocate. And here's what's really disturbing. You know it. Deep down, you've always known. That voice that wakes you up at 3 in the morning. That discomfort that won't go away. That feeling that something fundamental is missing. It's not generalized anxiety. It's specific anxiety. It's your true self knocking on the door, begging to be heard. And you can continue to ignore it. You can continue to medicate, distract, rationalize. You can spend another 10, 20, 30 years like this. Many people do. Many people reach the end of their lives without ever stopping to listen to what the pain was trying to tell them. But you don't have to be one of those people, because pain is not the enemy. Pain is the messenger. And if you stop shooting the messenger and start reading the message, you may find that the way out of suffering is not to eliminate the symptom. It's to change your life. Because ultimately the question isn't, how do I stop feeling anxious? The question is, why am I living in a way that makes me anxious? And that second question, that one can change everything. But to answer that question, you need to be willing to face something that most people avoid their entire lives. Something that is more frightening than any symptom, more than any discomfort. You need to face the fact that time is running out. No one likes to talk about death. It's uncomfortable. It's morbid. It's the kind of thing we prefer to pretend doesn't exist, at least not for us, at least not yet. But here's the truth that no one wants to hear. You're going to die. Not in an abstract, distant sense. In a real, concrete, inevitable sense. It could be 50 years from now. It could be 5 years from now. It could be tomorrow. And when that day comes, and it will come, the only thing that will matter is how you lived. Not what you accumulated. Not what you achieved in the eyes of others. But whether you truly lived. Whether you were yourself. Whether you tried. Whether you took risks. Whether you truly loved. Whether you did something that mattered. The Stoics of ancient Greece had an exercise for this. They called it memento mori, remember death. And it wasn't meant to be depressing. It was meant to be liberating. Because when you truly internalize that you are going to die, that time is finite, that every day that passes is one day less, something changes. The little things stop mattering. Other people's opinions lose their weight. The fear of failure seems ridiculous compared to the fear of never having tried. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and Stoic philosopher, wrote this to himself every day. You may leave life now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. He was at the height of power. He had everything a person could want, and yet he needed to constantly remind himself, this will end, so what really matters? And the answer was never security. It was never comfort. It was never what others will think. The answer was always live according to your values, doing what is right, not what is easy, being who you really are, not who you think you should be. But death is not just a philosophical reminder, it is a test. Nietzsche, the German philosopher, created a thought experiment he called eternal return. He asked, what if you had to live your life exactly as it is now, over and over again forever? Every moment, every choice, every day, over and over again, endlessly. Would you live that life? If the answer is no, then you need to change something, urgently, because the opposite is also true. If you are living a life you wouldn't change a thing about, a life you would choose to live again, then you have found something precious. You have found authenticity. You have found meaning. You are truly living. But for most people, the honest answer is no. I would not live this life again. I would change everything. And that answer should be terrifying because it means you are wasting the only truly non-renewable resource you have, time. You can make more money. You can make new friends. You can move to a new city, change jobs, change relationships. But you will never ever get back the time you've spent. Every minute you live inauthentic, every day you put off who you could be, every year you trade for safety, it's gone, forever. And the worst thing is not dying. The worst thing is reaching the end and realizing that you never lived, that you had a chance, one chance, to discover who you were, what you were capable of, what you could create, love, become, and you wasted that chance. Not because of bad luck, not because of a lack of opportunity, but because of fear, because you wanted security. Because you waited for the perfect moment that never came. Jung had a term for this, ontological guilt. It's not guilt for something you did. It's guilt for something you didn't do, for betraying your own potential, for knowing you could be more, do more, live more, and choosing not to. And that guilt, according to Jung, is the most devastating of all, because you can't apologize to anyone. You can only look in the mirror and know, I could have been different, and I chose not to be. But here's the part that can save you. You're still alive. You still have time. You can still choose differently. You can still wake up from this sleepwalking life and start living for real. Not tomorrow. Not when things get better. Now. Today. Right now. If you've made it this far, it's because some part of you knows this is true. Some part of you is tired of pretending, tired of waiting, tired of living half a life. And if you want to start rebuilding your life, if you want to get out of this state of numbness and finally live authentically, I've created something for you. It's a practical guide, not empty philosophical theory, but concrete steps to identify where you're betraying yourself and how to start changing that. You can access it for free at the link in the description, but only do so if you're really ready to take action. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And you don't have time for more entertainment. You have time to live. So the choice is yours. Continue as you are and reach the end knowing you never tried. Or start now, uncomfortably, imperfectly. But start, because the clock is ticking. And it won't stop for you. But let's say you decide that you really want to change, that you look at your life and think, yes, I need to do something different. You feel the urgency, you feel the clarity, you feel that finally, the moment has come. And then nothing happens, because between deciding and doing there is a chasm. And that chasm has a name, resistance, fear, the voice that says, but what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I try and find out it wasn't meant to be? Better not even start. And that voice is convincing, because it's protecting you, or at least it thinks it is. It's protecting you from the pain of failure, from humiliation, from disappointment, from the risk of discovering that you're not as special as you thought. And so you stand still, not because you don't want to change, but because the fear of trying is greater than the discomfort of staying where you are. Sartre had a phrase for this: you are condemned to be free. It seems paradoxical, but it's the starkest truth about the human condition. You are free. You always have been. You always will be. You can choose anything. You can completely change direction tomorrow morning. Nothing is stopping you. No cosmic force, no law of nature, no predetermined destiny. And that is terrifying, because if you are free, then you are responsible. And if you are responsible, then you can no longer blame anyone else. You can no longer say you have no choice. You can no longer pretend you're trapped. And that for most people is unbearable, because it's much easier to say, I have no choice. I need this job. I need this security. I can't take any risks. Than to say, I choose to stay in this job. I choose this security. I choose not to take any risks. The first version makes you a victim. The second makes you an author. And being an author means taking on the weight of your own life. But here's what no one tells you. The fear never goes away. Never. You can wait your whole life to feel brave, confident, ready. And that day will never come. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite the fear. It's looking into the abyss, feeling your legs tremble, and taking the step anyway. And you know what happens when you do that? The fear diminishes. Not because you become braver, but because you've proven to yourself that you can act despite your fear. That fear is not an impediment. It's just a feeling. Uncomfortable, but just a feeling. And feelings don't kill you. Inaction kills. Slowly, silently, but it kills. Camus, a French philosopher, wrote about the absurdity of existence. He said that life has no inherent meaning, that there is no cosmic purpose, no divine plan, no guarantee that things will work out. And that could be despairing. But for Camus, it was liberating. Because if life has no meaning, then you are free to create your own meaning. You are free to choose what matters, to decide what is worth fighting for. And his response to absurdity was rebellion. Not violent rebellion, but existential rebellion. The refusal to passively accept what is. The decision to act even without guarantees. To create even knowing that everything is temporary. To live intensely even knowing that you will die. Because the alternative, giving up, accepting, surrendering, is worse than any failure. And that's what starting requires of you. Not the certainty that it will work, but the courage to try even without certainty. The willingness to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to do things poorly at first, because the only thing worse than trying and failing is never trying and spending the rest of your life wondering, what if? So start. Not tomorrow, not Monday. Today. Now. With something small, something manageable, something you can do in the next 5 minutes that moves you, even if only a millimeter, in the direction of who you want to be. Because the beginning doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be. And every time you start, every time you act despite your fear, you send a message to yourself. I am someone who does what they say. I am someone who keeps promises. I am someone I can trust. And that is the only trust that really matters. Not the trust of others, not external approval, but knowing deep in your soul that you are someone who acts, who tries, who doesn't give up on yourself. Because in the end, the only person who will be with you until the last second is you. And the only question that will matter is, did that person respect me? Did they fight for me? Or did they abandon me at the first sign of trouble? The answer to that question is being written right now, with every choice, with every action, with every moment you decide between the easy and the true, and the time to rewrite that story is running out. So what are you going to do? But there's one last thing that needs to be said, a truth that hurts more than all the others. And it's about the person you're betraying every day. It's not your boss. It's not your parents. It's not your friends. It's you. Every time you say, I'll start on Monday and don't start. Every time you promise yourself you'll change and don't change. Every time you break a commitment you made to yourself, even if it's small, even if no one else knows, you're sending a clear message to the only person who really matters. I can't trust myself. And that is the deepest betrayal, because you can walk away from people who disappoint you. You can change jobs, cities, social circles, but you will never escape yourself. You will be there when you wake up. You will be there in the mirror. You will be there in the moments of silence when there is no one else to blame, no one to distract you, just you and the truth about who you have been. And if that truth is, I don't keep my word, not even to myself, then what do you have? Nothing. Because if you can't trust yourself, nothing else works. No goal, no plan, no promise of change is worth anything, because you've proven repeatedly that your words mean nothing. This isn't to make you feel guilty. It's to wake you up, because integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about keeping your word, especially when no one is watching, when it would be easier to give up, when you're tired, unmotivated, doubting yourself. In those moments, keeping the promise you made to yourself is the most revolutionary act there is. Because every time you do that, you're rebuilding the most important relationship in your life, the relationship with yourself. Every time you honor a commitment, no matter how small, you're making a deposit into your trust account. And over time, those deposits add up, until one day you look in the mirror and think, I'm someone who does what they say. I'm someone I can count on. And when you reach that point, everything changes, because you no longer need external validation. You no longer need the approval of others. You have something that no one can take away: self-respect. The deep certainty that you are someone who keeps their word, someone who doesn't give up on themselves. But building that requires something brutal: consistency, not intensity, not grand heroic gestures. Just showing up day after day, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to, because anyone can act when they're motivated. The question is, can you act when you're unmotivated, when you're tired, when no one will know if you give up? That's when the transformation happens. Not on good days, on bad days, when you get up anyway, when you honor your commitment anyway, when you choose yourself anyway. And here's what no one tells you about this process. It's slow, painfully slow. You won't wake up tomorrow transformed. You won't have an epiphany and suddenly everything will be easy. It will be difficult. It will be uncomfortable. There will be days when you want to give up, and some days you might give up. But the difference between those who change and those who don't is never giving up. It's coming back. It's starting over. It's not allowing a bad day to become a bad week to become a bad month to become a bad life. Because in the end, it's not about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you get up. And if you get up one more time than you fall, you win. It's that simple, brutally simple. And over time, months, years, something strange happens. That person you were trying to become, they disappear. Not because you gave up, but because you became them. You are no longer chasing a future version of yourself. You are that version. And when you look back at where you were, you hardly recognize that person, as if it were another life, another person. But it was you. And that's proof that real change is possible. That you're not doomed to be who you've always been. That every day is a new chance to choose differently, to vote for who you want to be. And if you vote every day, eventually the election is decided. You become what you practice, not what you think, not what you want, what you do, repeatedly, without exceptions, without excuses, just action, day after day after day. And one day you realize you're no longer trying to change. You've already changed. You're no longer forcing yourself. You're just being who you are. And who you are now is someone you respect, someone you trust, someone who does what they say. And that's the only victory that really matters. Not impressing others, not proving anything to anyone, just looking in the mirror and liking who is looking back, knowing that you are not betraying that person, that you are fighting for them, that you choose them every day, even when it's hard. Because that person, you, is the only one who will be with you until the end. And they deserve to be treated with respect, with loyalty, with love. And it all starts when you decide, I'm not going to betray myself anymore. I'm not going to break promises to myself anymore. I'm not going to choose the easy way out when I know the right thing is different. I'm going to choose myself, today, and tomorrow, and the day after, until it becomes who I am. So here we are, at the end of this journey, but also perhaps at the beginning of another. You already know everything you need to know. You know you're living a life you didn't really choose. You know that the security you pursue is an illusion. You know that your suffering is a sign, not a defect. You know that time is running out. You know that fear never goes away, but that you can act despite it. You know that the only person you're betraying is yourself, and you know you can stop. Now, today. So knowledge isn't the problem. It never was. The problem is what you're going to do with it. Because there are two paths from here. The first is to close this video, feel a twinge of discomfort, maybe even think, yes, I need to change, and then go right back to what you were doing. Let the days pass. Wait for Monday. Wait for the right conditions. Wait until you feel ready. And so the months turn into years, and the years turn into a lifetime. And you reach the end and realize nothing has changed. You had the information, you had the clarity, you had the chance, but you did nothing with it. The second path is different. It's uncomfortable, it's uncertain, but it's real. It's deciding that this ends here, that you will no longer accept living half a life, that you will no longer betray yourself, that you will start today, now, to rebuild the life you want to live, not perfectly, not without fear, but authentically. And this path comes with no guarantees. You may try and fail, you may disappoint people, you may make mistakes, you may find it harder than you imagined. All of that is possible. But you know what else is possible? That a year from now you'll look back and no longer recognize the person you used to be. That you've built something real, something that matters, something that is truly yours. That you've proven to yourself that you are capable of change. That you've learned to trust yourself. And there is no feeling in the world comparable to that. To know that you did what you said you would do. That you didn't give up on yourself. That you honored the person only you know completely. The one who sees all your fears, all your weaknesses, all the moments you wanted to give up, and chose to fight for them anyway. So the only question that remains is, which path will you choose? Because there is no neutrality here. Not choosing is also choosing. Leaving things as they are is also a decision. And you are making that decision right now at this moment as you read this. So answer for yourself with the most brutal honesty you can muster. Are you going to do something different? Or will this be just another video, another reflection, another good intention that dies in oblivion? Because if you've come this far, some part of you wants to change. Some part of you is exhausted from living like this. Some part of you knows you deserve more. And that part is right. You deserve to live a life that is truly yours. You deserve to wake up without that weight on your chest. You deserve to look in the mirror and like who is looking back at you. You deserve to try. You deserve the chance to discover who you can be when you stop pretending and start truly living. But no one is going to give you that. No one is going to show up and change your life for you. There is no savior. There is no perfect moment. There is no sign from the universe saying that now is the time. There is only you and the decision you're going to make in the next 5 minutes. So tell me, how do you feel when you imagine 5 years from now being exactly where you are now, doing the same things, feeling the same emptiness, having the same internal conversations about change that never happens? Does it suffocate you? Does it tighten your chest? Does it fill you with silent despair? Because if the answer is yes, then you already know what to do. You always knew. You were just waiting for permission, waiting for certainty, waiting for courage. But here's the truth. You'll never feel 100% ready. You'll never have all the answers. You will never eliminate all fear. But you can act anyway. You can start imperfectly. You can start scared. You can start without knowing how it will end. And that beginning, however small, is the only one that matters. Because it's the only one that can get you out of where you are. It's the only one that can break the cycle. It's the only one that can turn intention into reality. So I leave you with one last question. And this time you don't answer me. You answer the person who will be in your mirror tomorrow morning. The person who will live with the consequences of the choices you make today. The person who 10, 20, 30 years from now will look back and assess whether this life was worth it. That person, your future self, is looking at you right now and asking, will you choose me or will you betray me again? The answer starts now. So before you go, what did you realize about yourself while watching this? Write it in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. Because verbalizing it is the first step to making it real. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos, you reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the codes of the White Rabbit are ready for you. The link is in the video description. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.